Wichita, Kansas, 1974, a quiet city in the middle of America, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked, waved from porches, and kept their lawns trimmed in perfect rows. Danger was something that happened elsewhere, on the coasts, in big cities, not here in the heartland where everyone knew everyone else's business. Then a letter arrived, a single page, typed on a manual typewriter, folded with military precision, sealed in an envelope addressed to KAKE-TV, the local station, no return address, postmarked from Wichita itself. Inside were photographs, Polaroids of a crime scene the police hadn't released. There were diagrams drawn with ruler straight lines, and a confession, not frantic or emotional, but cold, methodical. The tone of a man filing a report. He claimed responsibility for the murders of 4 members of the Otero family that January. Joseph Otero, 38, his wife Julie, 34, their son Joseph Jr., 9, their daughter Josephine, 11. He described the bindings, the sequence, the movement from room to room, every detail laid out like a technical procedure. It wasn't a confession, it was documentation, and he signed it with a name, BTK. He explained it with brutal simplicity: bind, torture, kill, not a plea for forgiveness, a brand. He promised this would not be the last time they heard from him. He had others planned, he said, a code, a pattern, a set of rules guiding his work. He wanted the police to know how clever he was. He wanted the papers to print his letters. He wanted Wichita to feel his name echo in every street, whispered in living rooms, printed in police reports. The letters kept coming. One arrived at the Wichita Eagle. Another was hidden inside a book at the public library. Each time he corrected mistakes in news coverage, providing details only the killer could know. The color of a blouse, the position of a body, the type of knot used. He drew crude sketches of victims posed like mannequins. He sent word puzzles and codes taunting detectives. He mocked them for their failures, suggesting they weren't taking him seriously enough. And he killed again. Catherine Bright in April 1974, Shirley Vian in March 1977, Nancy Fox that December. Each time he refined his methods. Each time he wrote again, as if submitting a report to an audience he believed should admire his precision. Detectives began to understand they weren't hunting a man driven by impulse or rage. They were tracking someone who believed he was orchestrating a contest, one where fear was the currency and fame was the prize. A man who didn't just want to kill, he wanted to be remembered for it, to have his name whispered with the same dread as Jack the Ripper or the Zodiac Killer. BTK wasn't hiding in the dark, trembling at the sound of sirens. He was watching the ripples of fear he created, calm, patient, savoring the panic. The task force expanded. The FBI joined. Psychologists built profiles. The city was told to lock its doors, to stay alert. Wichita held its breath each time the mail arrived, wondering if another letter would surface, wondering who would be next. And then, after the 10th victim, Dolores Davis in 1991, silence. No new letters, no new bodies, no more taunts or puzzles or newspaper corrections. The city exhaled, slowly, cautiously, like a person waking from a nightmare, checking the locks one more time before daring to sleep again. The task force stayed open for years, chasing leads that dissolved into dust. Detectives retired, files were boxed and stored away. BTK became a ghost story, something parents whispered about when warning their children not to walk home alone, a relic from the 70s and 80s. The monster, it seemed, had disappeared, and Dennis Rader, the man behind the name, went to church on Sundays. For 30 years, Dennis Rader lived 2 lives, or maybe, more truthfully, he lived one, and remembered another in secret. He served as president of the Congregation Council at Christ Lutheran Church, a man trusted to handle money, disputes, and faith. He organized potlucks, balanced budgets, led meetings with calm efficiency. His pastor would later describe him as dependable, if overly rigid, a man who loved order, who followed rules to the letter and expected others to do the same. He led Cub Scout meetings for local boys, teaching them how to tie knots, start fires, and read the stars. Parents trusted him. They shook his hand at drop-off, grateful for a steady adult willing to guide their children. Some of those boys would later remember him as strict but fair, a man who demanded precision and obedience. By day, he worked for Park City, a small municipality just north of Wichita, as a compliance officer. His job was to enforce local ordinances, measure lawn heights, check fences, write citations. To some, he was diligent, to others, insufferable. The neighbor who'd mark down violations, who'd quote regulations like scripture. They called him petty, said he was on a power trip, but none of them found him dangerous. Annoying, yes, but harmless. A man with a clipboard, not a killer with a past. At home, he was dependable, predictable. He'd married Paula in 1971. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter. He ate dinner at the table each night, mowed the lawn every Saturday morning, and kept his tools hung neatly on labelled hooks. He logged his gas mileage in a spiral notebook, alphabetized his DVDs, wrote to-do lists for the week ahead. Everything had a category, everything had its place. Order wasn't a preference, it was oxygen. But in private, he curated something else. In his basement and in locked cabinets, he kept what he called his projects. Folders filled with photographs of victims, clipped from newspapers, stored in plastic sleeves. Sketches he'd drawn years after their deaths, refining details, reliving each moment in pencil and ink. Driver's licenses, jewelry, clothing. Each item catalogued and labelled with dates and initials only he understood. They weren't souvenirs, they were proof, a record of his control. He hadn't killed in over a decade, but he'd never stopped organising, never stopped revisiting. BTK had gone quiet, but he hadn't gone away. He just lived inside the man who'd replaced him. He believed he'd erased the past, buried it under church committees, city jobs and PTA meetings, that he'd beaten the game by walking off the board. But ghosts don't stay buried, they wait to be invited back. February 2004. 30 years after his first murders, the world had changed. The old files, dusty and analog, were now digital, searchable, traceable. Crime had gone online. That winter, the Wichita Eagle ran a retrospective about the Otero killings, a quiet reminder of the case that had haunted the city. Retired detectives shared memories. Families of victims spoke about grief and time and the ache that never healed. Dennis Rader read the articles in his living room, and something in him stirred. They'd moved on, forgotten him, reduced him to a relic, a footnote in the city's history. His letters were barely mentioned. The focus was on the victims, the detectives, the years of fear. His name, the one he had chosen, the one that had once commanded attention, was fading. That wouldn't do. In March, a letter arrived at KAKE-TV, then another in May. One was even left in a public park, sealed inside a cereal box. Each carried his old signature symbol. Each was written in that same cold, self-satisfied tone. The voice of a man who still believed he was the smartest one in the room. After 3 decades of silence, BTK was speaking again. More letters followed, more puzzles. He corrected the news again, annoyed at mistakes. He sent drawings, codes, clues, all designed to remind Wichita that he was still there, still watching, still in control. And then came the question, could a floppy disk be traced? He wanted to send one, to make communication easier, more modern, more efficient. But he needed reassurance. He wanted the police to confirm that the technology couldn't betray him. The task force consulted with experts, with prosecutors, with the FBI. Then they answered him publicly through a message printed in the Wichita Eagle. No, they wrote, floppy disks can't be traced. He believed them. A few days later, a padded envelope arrived at KKTV. Inside was a purple 3.5-inch floppy disk, the kind already vanishing from use by 2005. The disk contained one file titled test.rtf, just another taunt, a short message to prove BTK was still out there. Nothing overtly incriminating, nothing a normal reader would think twice about. But the investigators didn't read the message, they read the metadata. Hidden inside the file's properties, lines of invisible code, was the name of the last person to save it, Dennis, and the computer it came from, Christ Lutheran Church. After 30 years, the case broke open in a single click. The police didn't move right away. They had waited 30 years. They could wait a little longer. If they made a mistake now, he might vanish again. They watched him, followed his beige Jeep Cherokee from home to work and back, collected traffic camera footage, noted the routes he drove, the stores he visited, the times he left his house. They obtained a DNA sample, quietly, from a medical test his daughter had taken during a routine appointment. When the lab results came back, the match was exact. The bloodline was undeniable. Everything fit. Dennis Rader still clocked in each morning at the Park City office, clipboard in hand, still measured lawns and wrote violations in neat block letters. still attended church on Sundays, shaking hands in the fellowship hall, smiling that mild, familiar smile, the mask held perfectly until the day it didn't. February 25th, 2005, a calm afternoon just a few blocks from his home. Police lights flashed in his rearview mirror. He pulled over without protest. He didn't resist, didn't even look surprised. Inside the trunk of his Jeep, detectives found ropes, handcuffs, plastic sheeting, and tools, all labeled with masking tape, wrapped with care. At his house, they found maps marked with X's, photographs of women posed in the same ways victims had been found, notebooks filled with codes and meticulous handwriting, boxes of trophies, jewelry, driver's licenses, scraps of clothing, every item indexed, every detail recorded. He hadn't stopped being BTK, he had simply stopped killing. Age had slowed him. Life had become crowded. Children, work, community. The reward no longer matched the risk, but the compulsion to organize, to catalog, to preserve control had never left him. On his church computer, investigators found his final question to police typed in neat black font: "Can I be traced?" The answer had been waiting in the machine all along. When Rader stood in court, first for arraignment, later to plead guilty, the room fell silent. He looked ordinary. A beige suit, wire-rimmed glasses, a posture that belonged to an accountant, not a murderer. The prosecutor read the names of the 10 confirmed victims: the Oteros, Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, Maureen Hedge, Vicky Wageler, and Dolores Davis. For each name, the judge asked Rader to explain what he had done. He answered calmly, describing his actions in precise mechanical detail: times, knots, movements, tools. He corrected small errors in the record. He spoke about logistics. He never faltered. Reporters later wrote that it sounded like a man reading from a maintenance manual. No remorse, no visible pleasure, just information delivered as if it were paperwork. He told the court he called his compulsion factor X. He said he stopped not from guilt or faith, but because life had changed. He called himself an ordinary man with a bad side. When he finished, he thanked the judge for his time. Judge Gregory Waller, a man who had sentenced hundreds before him, paused before replying. His voice was steady, but heavy enough to make the air in the room feel different. "Mr. Rader," he said, "you have done everything possible to make yourself larger than life. You have sought attention, recognition, infamy. But in the end, you are small, petty, utterly unremarkable except in the suffering you caused. May God have mercy on your soul, because the state of Kansas will not." Dennis Rader received 10 consecutive life sentences, one for each victim, totaling 175 years, no parole, no escape. He was sent to El Dorado Correctional Facility, where he remains in solitary confinement. Even there, he continued to write letters, journals, corrections to articles he disliked, notes to students and reporters who reached out. He still wanted the record to be precise. He still wanted the story to bear his name. The media obliged, books appeared, documentaries aired, his drawings and writings were studied and archived. BTK became a shorthand for a certain kind of monster, the one who hides in plain sight, the neighbor who waves from his yard. And that was his true hunger all along, not blood but remembrance. He didn't just want to kill, he wanted to curate his legend, to control how the world would remember him, how history would pronounce his name. He believed that if he managed the story carefully enough, he could never disappear. But pride leaves fingerprints, even on a floppy disk. In the end, Dennis Rader's need for control outlived his freedom. More cases by the fire.
Good night from Fireside Tales. Like and subscribe.